This is Jason Custer, and you're listening to the Garrett Smith podcast.
I think that played out perfectly, because if I had the theme song unmuted, it would have kicked in right as you finished saying that. That was perfect. Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show. I say that as if they're here to clap. We're all in our own living rooms. But rhetorically, on your own, 6 feet away from your nearest loved one, please welcome Jason Custer to the podcast. Jason, how's it going?
Man, it's going good. Just trying to stay busy.
Yeah, that's, I've had so many people that are like, what are you doing to learn a new skill during quarantine? Or I'm so bored, I can't wait to go. I'm like, I got busier. I don't know what kind of jobs people have, but I got busier.
It hadn't slowed down for me at work, and I'm not even essential. But then of course with the studio, we're using some of this downtime. I had a buddy of mine come down from Denton to record an acoustic album. So after doing all that, and I laid down all the bass guitar for it, and got a buddy of mine coming in doing some lead guitar work. I say buddy, he's going to be our second lead guitar player in the band. So
cool.
He's one of our old lead players that moved away and came back home, and he was here for about 4 months, and then he reached out to us.
Oh, cool.
And let us know he was back. So I put him to work.
For anyone listening, the last band I got to play alongside was Jason. We opened up for him at O'Brien's in Temple. And unbeknownst to us, that was probably one of the last shows people got to see live in this area for a while. And it was, I don't know, like it looked like they were going to keep the whole event going. And I don't think we realized yet just how big this whole thing was going to become. So I'm glad we got to do that. But good grief, I didn't realize how down to the wire it was.
Yeah, I think of course, that was the Friday night kickoff to St. Patrick's Day celebration.
Yeah.
And I think they had a big show Saturday night. And then I think they actually did the St. Patrick's Day show, but they didn't get to cap off the event on the following weekend. So it's kind of a shame. They had some good bands lined up for that weekend too. They
really did. I was glad to be a part of it.
This whole thing threw a monkey wrench, and we were going to record a live album that next weekend up in Fort Worth.
Wow. Well, yeah. It might be good you didn't, because I still have your amp cable.
We've got plenty, but we would like to have that back, because
you'll get
that's one of our long ones. That way it can reach the power even better.
Yeah, music equipment's not cheap. So when I was unpacking everything from my last show, and I was like, why do I have two cables? I can barely afford one. I was like, okay, who did I perform with that's probably missing a cable?
Yeah, no, it was not a big deal. I mean, like I said, we've got plenty. Luckily, my son, he's 18 years old, and he hoards computer parts and has thousands of those things, I think.
Oh, good. So you're staying busy. I know you kind of had some plans coming up for recording and things of that nature, but in the middle of Corona-geddon, what have your focuses shifted any, or have you kind of had to move anything around for your plans?
Well, so we've got two guys in the band that are both one's had a heart attack as recently as early December after a show. We were loading everything up, and he started saying, "Man, I don't feel right." And we were like, "Okay." So we get everything loaded up. We stop at a convenience store. He got sick in the parking lot, and he said, "I really don't feel right." And they're like, "Okay." But we got him home, and it wasn't until the next evening that he had his wife take him to the hospital, and they said, "You had a heart attack."
Wow. The next day?
Yeah. That's crazy. That night, apparently he had it, or he was having one the whole time.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm not a cardiologist, so but I don't know how that works. All I know is seems like heart attacks kill people.
Yeah. See, now I'm going to be paranoid, because usually I'm a few notes into any given show and I say something doesn't feel right. It's usually my tuning, but not my cardiovascular system.
Don't think of me being the buzzkill or anything. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. So you talked about an acoustic album. Is that like acoustic versions of songs you already have, or are those going to be new songs?
No. This is a buddy of mine named Jacob Blevins. He's a singer-songwriter. He grew up in Fort Worth. He played college baseball at Tarleton after transferring in from a JUCO, and his wife actually also played college softball at JUCO and then transferred to Tarleton. Huh. So both of them, play a little little baseball softballage, and anyway, I met him. He had actually recorded out in San Saba at another friend's studio out there named Milo Flint. And something didn't go right with the recording or something. That's his story to tell. But I met him because I had loaned one of my son's drum sets to the studio to get it out of my house. So I was out there dropping it off, and I met Jacob, and they were going to use that kit that weekend to lay down drums. And Jacob and I met. We hit it off. Never talked again, though, until we happened to run into each other at an open mic one night. And he recognized me, thank goodness, because I was like, I think I know that guy, but I don't recognize the name, but I'm terrible with names. So anyway, we got to BSing, and he said he was looking to record an album. I said, well, I got a studio, so anytime you got time, come on down. So he came down on a Friday night, spent Friday and Saturday with us, and then Saturday and Sunday we recorded and got all of his stuff laid down. And now we're really just waiting for lead guitar to get recorded and mix and master, and it's done.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna look forward to hearing that.
I'll make sure that you get a copy of it.
Awesome. Yeah, and well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm looking forward to all your band members being healthy, but I think that'll make it even better when it's like, all right, everyone's healed up and people are out of quarantine. I think it'll just be kind of a fresh, I don't want to say fresh start, but it'll be kind of like a new kickstart for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm hoping that those bands like us, our band, I don't know how your band fares, but seems like all these people say, oh yeah, we're going to be at the show. And then we get there and half of them aren't there. They went to see somebody else play, but
been there, done that.
Oh yeah. But
let me rephrase that. I haven't done that to anyone. If I say I'm coming to your show, I'll be there. But
I've
had that happen.
When they tell me, well, we were going to come, but we went to see Cody Johnson, or we went to see Cody Jinks, or we went to see Cody Canada, all the Codys. And I was like, well, if you would have told me, I would have just skipped the show and come with y'all.
I'd have changed my name to Cody for a few hours.
Maybe that's, you know what? That's or change your last name to James, like Davin James, Seth James, or Stephen James.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
See? I knew we'd segue that in somehow.
I was playing a show in College Station where I had a bunch of people skip out on me to go see Shane Smith and the Saints. I'm like, wrong Smith. I mean, more people know who he is, but come on.
Right. I mean, he at one time, nobody knew his name, and they were skipping the Shane shows to go to somebody else's show. So It's okay.
Well, I actually had to leave your show early at O'Brien's because I had to leave at 5 a.m. the next morning to get down to Corpus to rehearse for a show I had, that following night in Port Aransas with a whole band that I'd never played with before. And so I got down there, and so many people I knew and their friends who would have come to my show all skipped to go to the big Cody Johnson spring break show. Well, the Rona struck, and guess who got canceled right before my show, and I got to keep playing. So
I heard about that. I remember that. Yeah, I think I heard about it in one of the podcasts I was listening to.
Probably so. I think I've said it 3 times. I probably need to shut up about it. But that
no. I mean, hey, they shut Cody Johnson down,
but not
you
me.
Kept playing.
Not Garrett Smith.
Yeah, you're essential.
I'm essential. I'm an essential employee of the Texas music scene.
Right.
Well,
I'll tell you one of the things that stick out in my mind though about that night over in Temple was the beach balls.
Oh no.
And the party foul that was committed.
Oh no. So I have been wanting to do that for so long. I thought, hey, I'll have this cool gimmick. I'll have like a little relay rodeo thing during the rodeo song and a beach ball competition during the Port Aransas song. Well, the volunteers I had that were going to take part in the rodeo game saw the stick horses I was hiding backstage. They're like, I'm not volunteering for whatever you're putting us through. So at the end, we did the Port Aransas thing with the beach balls. And at first, I'm like, okay, people are into this. It's cool. But we did it with volunteers. And so we had a team of 2 versus another team of 2, and it was going fine. But this one dude gets up and he wanted to play ball. And he goes and just starts smacking the beach ball around, probably drunk as a skunk. And I'm looking over at TW and I'm thinking, oh, he's never going to bring me back after this. So I'm watching, there's beach balls flying behind the stage, over the bar. And then, of course, some dude's drink got knocked over. Thankfully, he was a happy drinker and he was totally cool. And I got him another drink. But
that's what I was going to say.
No.
you did buy him another drink. So.
Oh, yeah.
His pants got a little drunk, though.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I walked over to TW later. I thought, oh, here it goes. And he's like, hey, we'll have you back sometime. I thought, okay, well, that is the opposite of what I thought he was about to say.
Well, and I don't think, I'm pretty sure that if TW had a problem with anybody, he wouldn't hold back. He'd let them know. So.
No, I think he would. Shout out TW Sullivan.
That's and O'Brien's.
And O'Brien's. Well, speaking of beers and things that happen with them, I'm going to play a song called Drink This Beer. It's the title track off the new album. Here it goes.
In my cup holder sits a cold beer, but I can't take a drink till I know I'm in the clear. But that's the truth. Yeah, that's on my till. One wrong move for me, and I'm going to that county jail.
drink this beer. So I love the Southern rock sound of that song and kind of like the whole album. I mean, it's country, but it's also got that rock kick to it, which I love. You know, it's how do you guys get your sound?
I've always just written country songs, or the singer songwriter style, whatever. Not folk rock, but singer songwriter style. And as luck would have it, I got the band of my dreams. I got a heavy metal bass player that I actually kind of taught how to play country style bass, and a hard rock heavy metal drummer that our drummer, fortunately, he grew up on all forms of music, but he just always played in rock bands. But the rhythm section turned it into more of a Southern rock driving kind of sound, and which is fine by me because I don't have a country crooner kind of voice. I can admit it. I've never done a George Strait cover tune. I just can't do it. But and then our lead guitar player, Travis, that dude, he grew up in Florida and grew up on everything from bluegrass to 90s alt rock, and just loves playing any and all styles of guitar. And he just that's where our sound comes from. I mean, it's kind of hard to diagnose exactly where it comes from. Luckily it comes from four guys who like making the same kind of racket.
Have y'all had the same four guys for a long time, or have you just kind of rotated out?
No, this lineup, we've been playing together since Travis was the last one to come into the band, which Travis actually used to be the bass player when I was telling you about Roy, the lead guitar player that was in the band. He moved away and he came back. When he was the lead player in the band, Travis was actually playing bass.
Huh.
And so Travis and I have been playing together the longest, but he was the last one to actually come back into the band, and that would have been 3 years ago in February. We played our first show together as this lineup. So, and we've been together ever since, and nobody's left. But like I said, when Roy came back, we were like, we're going to work you into the band. We're about to be a 2 lead guitar band.
That's cool. Y'all kind of pulled off what Motley Crue almost did back in the 90s, after they kicked Vince Neil out. Well, when Vince came back to the band, they didn't want to kick John Corabi out. So they're like, well, John could just be the second guitar player.
Right.
Which they almost did. But I don't remember what happened, but for some reason it didn't work out. But that's kind of cool that you're able to kind of expand and bring in the whole band history there. Yeah.
And it's kind of a weird deal because, I'd been playing. I started this whole singer-songwriter thing for myself back in, 98, 97. And then I took a long hiatus from music when I joined the Army and lived everywhere but Texas, except for my last 2 years in the Army. And once I got back to Texas, about 2 months later, my mom had cancer. And about 2 months after I moved back home, she passed away.
Oh, and
it is, I hate that saying, but it is what it is. It's one of those things that she was diagnosed, she was terminal, and she died. And luckily it didn't take her, 5 or 6 years to die from it.
Yeah.
If you're going to go quick, because I couldn't bear to hardly watch her that fast. But we can cut this sad stuff out.
No, it gives it shock value.
Yeah. The funny thing is I wrote a song for my parents, and it was it was a hidden track on my very first album that I recorded back in '99. And that song is officially retired. I don't even try to sing it because since my mom died, I can't get through it. Yeah. But especially if I had to follow, Raising Humans.
Oh, yeah. Shout out Jerry Johnson.
But anyway, but my mom, always the consummate biggest fan of her children, she she never got to see me play with my own band. So while I was still in the Army, she passed away June 2nd, and by the middle of August, I had a band put together. And yeah, and from the day that we met until the day we played our first 4-hour show was 2 weeks.
Wow, that's fast.
And yeah, and unfortunately and fortunately, none of those members are still in the band today. But that's where I met Travis, and that's where he ultimately became the bass guitar player. And he, the rest is history, I guess.
So your band, are all members veterans? Because I know at least some of y'all are. I wasn't sure if all of you were.
Yeah, all 4 of us, and Roy. If we're going to start including him in the conversation, he was a vet too. So
wow,
everybody did their time overseas and did their time in uniform, and then but none of us ever served together. That's the weird thing. In fact, none of us. Well, Troy, my drummer, he and I were both infantry, but he did I think it was 3 or 4 years in the Army, got out. And then when he came back in as an engineer. And then he ended up doing 22 years total.
Wow. Well, special thanks to you and your band for all y'all service.
Thank you. And I don't know about other veterans. I never know how to respond to that.
Was that towards the end of your time in the military, or did you just kind of have a band while you were doing that?
Yeah, no, that was the last 2 years that I was in the Army. When I got stationed at Fort Hood, I had one of those nice cushy office jobs. And so it was one of those things. If I was at work, if I wasn't home by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it was my fault. It was pretty nice, as far as go from 10 years in the infantry to the last 2 years of kind of just being able to come and go as I please, and nobody really messed with me. Nobody asked me any questions. So just show up, do my job, and go home. I was able to, I had the time off to be able to put a band together, and I knew I wasn't going to be deploying with the unit that I was in. So didn't have to worry about that. So yeah.
That's cool.
Put a band together.
How long did it take for you to kind of start expanding and touring around this area of Central Texas? Because, there's a lot of little spots around Killeen, Temple, and all that, but you guys kind of go further out. Where do you still kind of keep the same circuit going, or do you keep branching it out? What's been your tour pattern?
We're always our saying is, if you're paying, we're playing. But we're all about. We played in one weekend. We played Galveston on a Friday night, and then turned around and played in Nacona on Saturday night.
Oh, wow.
Which, for those of you who don't own a map, that's about a 6-hour drive in between. Plus, we live in Lampasas, Killeen area, so we had to drive from here to Galveston, turn around, drive back to Nacona, and then drive home. So that was an overnight, stay in the hotel, spend money out of the band account, and because we weren't going to drive home both nights.
Yeah, it gets tiring. It really does, because you can road trip somewhere for a weekend, drive back, no problem, but it takes a lot to get a band together, manage it, do the show, hope there's no disasters. And in a musician's life, there usually are. So by the time you even get back on the road, you're kind of wiped out. Now, it's good that you kind of have a steady band, a reliable band. A lot of folks, myself included, we may have 1 or 2 guys that stick around, but then we kind of cycle people in. It's like, hey, got a show, who can fill the spot? And it's good when you have guys you can rely on, because it makes those road trips a lot easier. Oh yeah, and somebody who knows how to help set up the PA system, and guys who know how to tear it down and load it up, and where everything goes. And we've got it pretty much down to a science. From the time we hit a parking lot at a venue to the time we're sound checked and sitting down waiting for our food to come, or our drinks, it's about an hour and a half. Yeah.
And then teardown is even faster. I mean, we finish the last song of the set. We might go catch our breath and, smoke who smokes and drink who drinks. And then we start rolling everything up. And I mean, we've been loaded up and out of the parking lot in as fast as like 45 minutes after a show. And that's full PA system, teardown, the main subs, monitors, drums, everything loaded up on the road.
That's not bad.
Yeah, but that also comes down to we kind of approach everything kind of with the military mindset of let's get the work done so we can play.
I like that. That would probably do a lot of bands good to have that.
Yeah, I mean, when we've opened for bands, and I hope we weren't this band, when y'all opened for us, which was we've opened for those bands where we were backlining off of their stuff, and we knew that they needed to get set up, they needed a sound check, and then we would sound check so that their settings were saved, and we're just sitting there watching. Like, what is taking them so long? It's like 3 hours later, they're finally getting started doing their sound check. And it's like, come on.
Oh no, we were late. See, I was freaking out that night because, my guitar player got to my house half an hour behind, and then we scrambled to get the songs down at the last second, and then had to drive over there, and then I hit every red light. So I'm texting TW like, we're coming, we're not bailing. I was like, man, I've been waiting on this gig for a while. So no, y'all were pretty much sound checked by the time we even rolled in.
Oh yeah, we had it, and that was one of those things where TW, he set all the PA up. I mean, it's house sound. All we had to do was walk in with our amps and drums and set them up. But and there were some issues that had arose with the stage, the stage plot that I'd sent him and how it was set up. But in the end, it all got cleaned up real quick, and I mean, it was easy, quick and easy. We enjoyed the night there. That's for sure.
It's a unique stage at O'Brien's because when I got in there, we'd planned it to where that band lineup I had only started practicing that stuff for about a couple of weeks. So it was very crammed for us. But my drummer, Sammy, he's been on one of my tracks and we've played together before, but on a couple of the songs, I was going to reach over and kind of like tap him on the shoulder or give him a signal to kind of know when to change the rhythm or when to go into the chorus. Well, the stage at O'Brien's, the lead singer kind of stays on their own little platform that's lowered. And I thought, well, a lot of bands, you need to lower the singer because their ego's already got them through the ceiling. But in our case, I was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to signal him. So there were a couple times where I'm trying to signal people, and I'm like, I can't get off my little island here. I felt like on the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when they're on that little iceberg. I was like, that's kind of how I felt. So it worked, but there was one song that's a real soft song, but it builds up at the end. But I couldn't he didn't see me when I gave him the signal. So he just kind of kept the light drum tone. And if you watch the YouTube video, it just kind of stays slow. And then on the last chorus, he hammers it. And it was like, oh, what do we do now?
Man, that, it was, that is a kind of a weird stage, but it's also, it's one of the coolest stages because it is so different.
Yeah.
And the room sounds great. So
I really like that room. It's a cool pub. Like, I really like that spot.
If none of the listeners have ever, been to O'Brien's, I suggest go, order the shepherd's pie and the cheese curds and have a beer.
Cool spot. Well, I would also tell the listeners to check out the YouTube video from when we played that night, because there's a time when you were there talking to one of our mutual friends and y'all walked in front of the camera, and it's funny because there's an exact moment where you turn around and you point to my merch. It's like, oh, he's got the full setup. And then y'all both looked up and it's like, and we're on camera.
I was like, oh yeah, I knew that was set up, and I kept trying to avoid it the whole night. And then, we walked by, and then I was like, oh yeah, we're on camera right now. Smile.
It was a funny moment. So
I had a good time. I enjoyed y'all's set too. I mean, that was, and for a group of guys that, you guys don't play together consistently like my band does, y'all nailed it. Y'all put on a good show for a, I guess, what I would call back in the, I was playing back in the day, probably 98, 97, 98. Whenever I first got started, one of my first gigs would have been in the Stephenville area, and there was in Stephenville at the Cutting Horse Saloon, which was the bar that was built into the Holiday Inn on the south end of town.
Oh, wow.
And one of the bartenders had actually hired me to run the karaoke machine.
Oh,
like
wow.
to be the karaoke host. And I told him, I said, all right. I said, but I'll tell you right now, I don't sing karaoke. And he's like, well, I thought you were a singer. And I was like, dude, my guitar is my security blanket. I do not sing without my guitar. And to this day, like we go into the recording studio, it's a process just to get me through, vocal tracks, because for some reason I just feel completely naked and out of place without my guitar. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do is I will set up the karaoke, and whoever wants to come up here and sing karaoke, that's great. And then when nobody's singing, I'll just pull out my guitar and I'll play it through the karaoke system. He's like, okay, cool. And for about 6 months, it turned into every Friday night I had a standing acoustic show, because everybody would come in there, hear me play, and then wouldn't even come up to, ask to sing karaoke, which was cool because he was paying me to be the karaoke guy, and they kept tipping me to be the entertainment. So
that's a win-win.
It was a win-win situation. Yeah.
That's cool. I never really heard of that happening, but it's a pretty cool way to do it.
Yeah.
I really want, one of these days, I just want to troll everybody by loading in the instrumental track of one of my songs and go up and just sing karaoke to my own song, and go in a place where nobody knows who I am. Just be like, hey guys.
That's not a bad idea. I could do that with the current album, because I still have all the stems from the recording on that. But
my advice to any recording artists who are doing this for the first time: always, always, always keep an instrumental track without your vocals. Always that's not a bad piece of advice. You could drive around, especially right now when you're not playing any shows, you could at least be, keeping your vocal cords loose. The glamorous version of reasoning behind that is when Activision or I don't know who the company is that makes Guitar Hero, but whoever it is, or EA, whenever they call and say, hey, we want you to be an artist on this, they can have your instrumental track. But realistically speaking, if you ever do a show where you're playing over a band track or something of that nature, for me, I've done that. And I've also used those tracks right now to go in the studio and kind of, boost the sound. And I'm recording vocal do-overs on everything. So it's really helped to have those tracks there.
Oh yeah. Well, the good thing for us is, we have our own studio, and everything that we recorded on that album, we recorded, mixed, and mastered ourselves. When I say ourselves, I mean me, because and it was all trial and error. From the very first day we set everything up, I was like, yeah, we're going to crush this. This sounds good. And then the more I learned, the more I realized, hey guys, we need to re-record the rhythm tracks because they suck. And and it took us from the time we started recording, I believe it would have been October of 18. And we finally released the album in September of this past year. So it was almost a year's process, but it also had a lot to do with, waiting for lead guitar player to be able to get out here to the studio. He didn't want to work on the week during the week because he had a job, and he didn't want to drive over from Killeen out to here. It's about a 30-minute drive, and be here all night and then try to get up and go to work the next day. And then weekends, what are we doing on the weekends? We're playing shows. So it was hard to work around the schedule, but we finally got it. And now that we're not doing the live album, we've considered going ahead and starting tracks for the next studio album, and maybe getting that out by the end of the year.
Oh wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we were really looking forward to the live album because, I think most bands probably feel this way, is that no matter what you do or how you do it, there's nothing in the studio that's going to capture the energy of a live show.
Right.
And we like to think of ourselves as more of a live band. So I think this next one, we might try to do something where we set up in the studio and just hang some condenser mics and go to town, and see how it sounds. Yeah.
And you guys kind of have that style on your album, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first track and the last one are kind of just jam sessions that sound really cool.
Yeah. That started off as the brainchild of Travis, our lead player, that we were wanting to try to write some lyrics to it, but it got to be where the more we played it, the less we tried to write and just enjoyed playing it. And we're like, you know what, let's record this and we'll do like an instrumental version or an instrumental song as an intro to the second song on the album, because they're both in the key of E. And, when we play our live shows, that song typically is the lead into the Whiskey Good, Women Bad song. So
it's a funny song. There's several funny ones on there.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the songs on the album, let's play one here. What song should we throw out? Not throw out, throw on to the podcast.
throw it out. Most of them will probably be thrown out. I don't know. Do that Whiskey Good.
Awesome. Well, this one's called Whiskey Good, Women Bad.
Whiskey good, women bad. Words of wisdom passed to me down by my dad. He said, son of me, with every bit of my heart that I am. Whiskey good, women bad. Whiskey good. Whiskey good, women bad. Words of wisdom passed me down by my dad. He said, son of me, with every bit of my heart that I am. Whiskey good, women bad. Women bad, they burn too. You know that it's coming, but there ain't nothing that you can do. Yeah, they'll soak your heart, gasoline, strike a match and enjoy the view. Women bad, 'cause they burn too. Whiskey good, women bad. Words of wisdom passed me down by my dad. He said, son of me, with every bit of my heart that I am. Whiskey good, women bad. Whiskey
familiar with a guy named Ronnie Spears.
I've heard the name.
He used to play at the White Elephant all the time, and 8 Airs and Three Teardrops Tavern, and what was that place? W.W. Fairfield's in Dallas. And I mean, he great singer. And he went from being one of my singer-songwriter heroes. He ran around a lot with Brian Burns, played a lot of acoustic shows with Brian. And he was hosting an open mic at the Top Rail in Dallas.
Huh.
And Brian was like, hey, if you're ever up in Dallas, my buddy Ronnie hosts this open mic. So I go up and I hear him play, and that's the first time I heard him and met him and all that. And when he found out that I lived in Hamilton, he was like, well, where are you staying tonight? And I was like, I'm driving back home to Hamilton. He said, no, BS, you're staying the night at my house. You can crash on my couch. So, and we go straight to his house afterwards, and we stayed up till the sun came up, playing, just trading songs in the living room and drinking sweet tea and whiskey. That's where I was introduced to that drink. And ultimately, we ended up writing Whiskey Good, Women Bad, which is a song that he had a working title of it right after he went through a divorce. And he had a lot to do with that song.
I like how that song toggles back and forth by which one y'all talk about first. Just kind of like, right. Here's the problem or plus of this one, then we'll switch it for the other one. And just kind of rotate it back and forth. Which of your songs would you say have the best backstories? Oh, man.
That one there is one of my favorite stories to tell because I was invited to play. I was still in the Army. I was actually a recruiter down in Beaumont, and I was invited to play at Raz and the Braz 13 up in Glen Rose. And whatever year that would have been, 08, I guess, maybe. And I hadn't seen Ronnie Spears in forever. So he was headlining full band on Friday night, and I was playing the acoustic stage on Thursday night, but I was going to be there all weekend anyway. So when he and I saw each other for the first time, the band came driving in, they went straight down to their cabin, and I followed the van. I walked down to the cabin, and as soon as he got out of the van, he sees my face, and he's like, gives me a big old hug, asks me how I'm doing, how I've been, this, that, and the other. And then that's when he said, I got a song idea and I want you to help me write it. Whiskey Good, Women Bad. And so that night, sitting around a campfire with a bottle of whiskey, we wrote the song.
Wow.
And that's one of my favorite stories about a song that I wrote. But most of them just come from experience. Drink this beer. I mean, I'm pretty sure, well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us have been driving the dirt roads or the back roads or something and had a little ice cold buddy in the cup holder and hoping like hell you didn't get caught. And that's where that idea came from.
Yeah, I don't think the TABC is operating right now under this whole quarantine thing, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, they're non-essential.
They're definitely not essential.
But the liquor stores are open, so hey.
There you go. Tell me which one is building society.
Right, exactly. Guess who's been around longer?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's the essential one.
Oh, we'll see if I get any complaint letters on that one.
And then the song that's on the album, the acoustic song that I did, "Lost in Love." That's a song that I had written for my wife to have it played during our wedding. And we were sitting in the studio one night, and I was noodling around the guitar, listening to playback, and everybody was like, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's a song I wrote years ago." And they said, "Well, does it have words?" Well, yeah, it's got words. And they said, "Well, sing it." So I sang it, and they're like, "That needs to go on the album." So I had to ask my wife for permission to turn her wedding song into hopefully a commercial success. And after she heard it, she gave it the seal of approval. So
I love how some of the best songs are the ones where somebody hears a blip of it. Wait, do that again. There's so many songs that are great that have come out of those moments.
Yeah. And there's songs that I wrote there. I don't know about you, but there's songs that I've written that I kind of forgot that I wrote it. And it's just been like sitting in the back pocket. And we'll be at a rehearsal or, after a sound check or during a sound check, and I'll just start playing something and start singing it. And my lead guitar player always looks at me and, with that look of disgust on his face, like, we don't know that song. And then there'll be somebody, my bass player, he's the one that's always like, who wrote that one? And I'm like, I did. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. But one of the things that we do all the time is we do some cover songs, but a lot of the cover songs that we do are so obscure that people automatically assume that it must be ours because they've never heard it. And that's why I always have to tell the story. Oh yeah, well, this is a Mike Graham song, or this is a Macon Grayson song, because Macon Grayson actually had some pretty good success there towards the end, and then they broke up. So,
well, I think that if you played a Marshall Tucker band or something like that, a younger person in the crowd might not know that it's a cover, because you guys really have that vibe to you. And your dad was at that show that we were at, and I walked up to him before I left. I kind of motioned over at y'all. I was like, sounds like we got almost a ZZ Top vibe going in here.
And that would be because Travis is one of Travis's favorite guitar players is Billy Gibbons, and Trav uses a lot of pinch harmonics in his play style. So, which that's a Billy Gibbons thing. So,
yeah. I actually got to see ZZ Top for the first time recently, and I was like, I don't know, they've been on my concert bucket list for a while. But every time I try to go see them, something happens. One of them gets sick, or I have to pick between concerts. So I was starting to think I was never going to get to see them because they kind of took a break. But no, it was a good show. I saw them at the rodeo in San Antonio. Okay, I was about to ask if you saw the ZZ Top and John Fogerty tour. No, didn't get to see that one.
I wish I could have gone to that, but I think they played at the Bell County Expo. I think. I'm
trying to think. When was that? Oh, we got back here. Actually, we moved here a year ago this month, so I'm not sure if I was even.
I think it would have been before then.
Well, I do know ZZ Top played at the Expo Center with Skinner a few years ago,
right?
And that was one I wanted to go to and didn't get to, but I finally got to see Skinner at Chili Fest, which was amazing.
Yeah, Chili Fest. I've never been to Chili Fest, but I was accepted into the songwriter contest last year.
Mm-hmm.
And which, Tanner Sparks, I don't know if you're familiar with Tanner, but there's Tanner Sparks, and then there's his brothers, Zach and Tyler Stokes, that are all just badasses.
Yeah.
And so I was up against Tanner, and his steel guitar player showed up, which me and the steel guitar player hit it off. And when we were a week or two later, we were at a Battle of the Bands in Fort Worth at the Stockyards for the TCMA showdown in the Stockyards. And when Tanner and I cannot think of the steel guitar player's name to save my life right now. But when we all found out we were all going to be in Fort Worth together, 2 weekends later, we were like, well, let's tear Fort Worth a new one. and we tried and had a good time hanging out at Filthy McNasty's all night.
Oh, yeah. When I first saw the name of that bar when I was lining up gigs, I was kind of like, Filthy McNasty's? Let's give it a try.
Yes. Filthy's is... of course, the Stockyards, for as much as it's never changed, there's a lot of things that are different now. Because, when I was in my 20s, before I got married, there was the only place to see live music in the Stockyards, aside from Billy Bob's, was the White Elephant.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like... I don't even know what it's called now. Whiskey Girl Saloon. Is it still called Whiskey Girl?
I've not been, but I think there's one there called that.
Yeah. When I was there 20 some odd years ago, God, how old am I? It was called the Palomino, and it was nothing but DJ music, just country. Of course it was country music, but, and Filthy McNasty's was just, they never had a band. I can't think of any of the other places off the top of my head in the Stockyards now that have live music. You have the Love Shack now, which is right next door to the White Elephant. But yeah, now you can't walk through, you can't walk down Exchange without running into hearing some live music going on.
Kind of cool though. When this quarantine's opened up and bands can finally hit stages again, those kinds of streets are going to be really cool to walk again.
Yeah. I mean, we really took it for granted that it was always going to be there. And now, and it's still there. We just can't go.
So I'm going to play another song here in a minute. Which one should we throw in?
You want to throw in I don't know. What songs are on the album?
Well, crap, we already played them all. No. Let's see. We've played Drink This Beer, Whiskey Good. We've got Hippie Girl, Sweetest Thing, Prisoner's Lullaby, Life of Riley, Worse Than Before, Leaving San Antone, Lost in Love, Dirt Road Hooker.
Yeah. Dirt Road Hooker would be a good one. It doesn't say any cuss words.
Then it's wholesome.
If you like good stories behind the songs, I'd say let's do Worse Than Before. Okay. And then if there's time, or if you want to do a fourth song, you could do Dirt Road Hooker. I think people, we get a lot of people request that song.
Yeah, we'll do Worse Than Before now, and then we'll close out with Dirt Road Hooker.
Okay, that's probably the most country sounding song on the album.
It's pretty country. So
yeah, it's kind of that "You Never Call Me by My Name" vein.
Oh, I love that song. That song takes me back to college, even though it definitely predates my college days. We used to rock to that one all the time. So this one is called Worse Than Before.
Outside the sun shines bright, but here I am, stuck inside. And the older I get, the more the hangovers hang around. Yeah, this pounding in my head seems to multiply. This pain in my heart, this tears in my eyes, and last night's high just brings me down. Alcohol that helped me forget you has turned on me. I should have just dealt with this pain instead of drowning myself in whiskey. 'Cause I feel worse than I did before. Myself with smoke and booze, help me think that I can't lose, and I came to go. Party walked out my door. Somehow make my way home, realize that I'm still alone. Lord knows I can't take much more. I feel worse than I did before. I feel worse than I did
your favorite venues and towns to perform in?
The only venue that we have actually gotten into in Fort Worth is a place called the Blue Bayou, which is up on Eagle Mountain Lake. And we played there. The way I got into that was a guy named Billy Roberts, who's a singer-songwriter up in Springtown area. He and I became friends, and he did an album release party, and he had a bunch of people come up and do like acoustic sets and song swaps and stuff before his band took the stage. And they dug what they heard out of me and had me come up for my own show and on a Wednesday night acoustic night deal, and they liked it. And I told them I had a band. They booked us, and we've been playing there pretty much once a month up until this year. For the last 2 years, we played there we played 20 shows in 2 years there, which kind of oversaturated ourselves. But at the same time, every time we play there, there's about 5 or 10 people that come up and like, man, this is our first time to stop here, and we're going to be back the next time y'all are here.
Cool.
So, yeah, and we've made a little following, and it's kind of our Fort Worth home away from home. But I have to say, hands down, my favorite venue is north of Stephenville. There's a little town called Bluffdale, and there's a little bar in Bluffdale called the Greenwood Saloon. And as long as it's not raining or too damn cold, and you get to play on the outdoor stage, and even the indoor stage, the people that are there is what makes it so cool. But just the vibe of the place. I mean, for the time we get there and there's only 3 people sitting at the bar and we start setting up till the time we leave, I'm like in my happy place.
Those are the best spots.
Yeah. And they do a picker circle on Sundays. Anybody can bring a guitar, fiddle, mandolin, banjo, wash tub, bass, washboard, whatever. I mean, if you can play an instrument, bring it. We had a guy one time showed up with one of those juice harps,
Wow.
So and he's like the whole night, doing, 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 doing. So, it was, it's just one of those places that one night on a Sunday, the picking circle, Jason Eady and Courtney Patton showed up.
Oh, wow.
Of course, they just live, I guess, up the road in Weatherford, or that area. But you can run into Shay Abshire, you can run into Billy Hartman or Buck Fuffalo, or there's just so many awesome songwriters that go there on Sundays and play shows there on Fridays and Saturdays that you've never heard of because they play that area. And I've got one of my best friends who's like a little brother to me. I'm trying to get him to record an album, and he's like, I'm perfectly content working on doing farm and ranch work. And I'm like, dude, you've got a great voice. You're a great songwriter. Let's record this stuff.
You get in those places that are common to the songwriters. It's the best networking. And if it's not like Cheers where everyone knows your name when you walk in, everybody at least knows half the names that are in there quite a bit. So it really helps to get you plugged in. Yeah.
I mean, and when you walk into that place, I guess when they know you, the owners, they come up and give you a big hug. Most of the bartenders, it depends on if you're a good tipper. I don't know. Sometimes certain bartender probably, sees me come in and they're like, okay, I quit, I'm going home. But for the most part, it's a good time. I've never seen any kind of drama there. That's probably hands down my favorite place to play / just hang out.
So what can I lost my spot? I never lose my spot on this thing, and I've done that twice tonight. Awesome. I see that Jared Johnson told me, he said, you've got a voice for radio. I said, yeah, but I don't have the edit button on a live broadcast. That's my saving grace on this thing.
Are we on a 15-second delay?
There is a bleeper.
All right.
Let's see. Here we go. I have found it. All right. So where can people find the Jason Custer Band online? What are your social media handles and your website and things of that nature?
The website would be www.jasoncuster, jasoncusterband.com. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, I believe, are all the Jason Custer Band. So if you just look at Jason Custer Band, as long as you see the Jason Custer Band with the red cross cavalry swords, that's us.
The Pirates of Texas. I like it. That reminds me, speaking of different themes and things of that nature, you guys played at the Dirty Dog Bar, I think. Did y'all end up playing there?
No, the coronavirus nixed that in the bud. It was kind of funny because, here we are doing this kind of Texas Southern rock alt country band or whatever, and we get hit up on Facebook by this heavy metal band from Arizona that was coming through Texas to do a tour. Like, they were touring all the way from Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and then turning around. And I think they played in Houston. They played at El Paso and San Angelo. And they had a show in Austin, and they were looking for 3 or 4 bands to, warm up the stage. And reached out to us, and I told the girl that hit us up, I was like, we're not a metal band. and she was like, well, we'll have you play first so nobody's there to hear it. And I'm like, okay,
thanks,
whatever. Yeah, we'll come and sell merch. And so we were going to do it, but then the coronavirus, that would have been that would not have been the first time that we played with heavy metal bands. So it's kind of weird how stuff, like, we did a New Year's Eve party with a local metal band here. And then we did a battle of the bands at the Harley Davidson dealership. There was a heavy metal band and then a heavy blues band. And then there was us, and we won.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at a Harley dealership. So, I mean, that was kind of cool because we won a battle of the bands at a motorcycle dealership.
I'm going to do everyone a favor, and slight language warning, but if you want to see how unconventional shows can be and they work out anyway, all you need to do is get on YouTube, type in Denny's concert, and there's something called the Denny's Grand Slam, and it's the first video that pops up. And it's a metal band, like these guys from Houston playing inside of an old Denny's, and it is hilarious.
I will have to check that out. That sounds right up my wheelhouse right there.
What's up, Denny's? Oh, man. I think after quarantine, some of us, we want to get back on the stages we're used to playing, but if Denny's or IHOP call, we'll probably take the show.
In a heartbeat. We've got to pad the... We got to repair the band account.
The big 3 questions, the big grand finale. Number 1, if you could collaborate with anyone out there, who would it be?
Oh, man. I've never really, I've always liked other people's songwriting. I've never thought about writing songs with somebody. Obviously, like, to write a song with Willie Nelson.
Oh,
that would be, one of the greatest songwriters, and everybody else that I would want to write with is dead. So,
well, Willie's never going to go.
Yeah. I was like, really, to tell you the honest truth, pretty much anybody. I like to write. I like to collaborate. I haven't done a whole lot of collaborations, out of all the songs that I've written or co-written. There's only been about 5 maybe co-writes. So in fact, on the album, there's 2 co-writes on the album. That's 2 of the 5 co-writes I've ever done. But I would like to write with anybody who's a good writer that, might be able to break my funk. I've had a songwriting blank for a while. So.
I'm right there with you. I picked up the guitar last night and tried to finish out some songs. I have a bunch of half-written songs. I've got about an album's worth of songs if they were finished, but they're all just halfway completed. And instead, I ended up just kind of writing this downer about the quarantine and all that. Like, nobody wants to hear that right now. But question number 2, if you could headline any venue, where would you go?
Oh man, any venue? There's so many to choose from. I mean, Green Hall, that would be awesome. Billy Bob's. Let's see. I know I'm naming more than one. Just
Everybody does.
So many.
And they all start with Green Hall.
Yeah, and I think who was it? One of your interviewers said the Whitewater Amphitheater, and I've never even caught a show there. But that would also be a cool one.
Yeah, I think that was John Sines from Flatland Cavalry. Said they're going to be playing an outdoor show there, hopefully in November.
Very cool. Hey, in November, it actually might be cool.
Yeah, I just hope it's not November 2021 before any of us are allowed to do that stuff.
I know, right? But I guess to give you a solid, definitive answer, I would probably say Green Hall. Green Hall has been one of my favorite venues to go to catch a show. I've seen some great bands play there, and it'd be kind of awesome to stand on the same spot where Jerry Jeff or Ray Wiley or anybody else has.
That'd be cool. Well, the big question that I ask everybody is, what is the funniest or craziest story that you can tell from your music career so far? But I do like to reiterate that it doesn't have to be the craziest one. It can just be the craziest one you're allowed to tell.
No, this is probably the craziest one because we're all older guys, and we don't necessarily we still like to get down and party with everybody in attendance, but we don't go to a whole lot of after parties. So, and we don't drink like we used to. But the craziest thing that probably ever happened, we were playing, and I'm gonna omit the names of the people and the venue we were at, but I will say it was in North Austin, like a suburb of Austin, and we were playing at this bar, and anybody who's played there is going to probably recognize the description, but they had like a loading dock that you could back your trailer up to, and when you open the door, you were at the back of the stage, and we were loading back up. We finished the show, had everything loaded up in the trailer. We were hanging out with the bartenders and the manager, and having some beers out on the back porch. And my dad was there, and at the time it would have been about 71, 2. I don't know. It's a few years ago, and this drunk dude in a Jeep, who had like really wide tires on his Jeep, so they actually stuck out farther than his fender flares. If his Jeep, he was trying. If his Jeep was 6 feet wide, he was trying to fit it in a space that was about 5 feet 4 inches between an oak tree and my truck.
Oh, of course.
And we're trying to stop him. This guy's drunk. He hears us yelling at us. And again, like I said, there's been some lineup changes, so I can say this without really pinpointing who it was. My lead guitar player at the time pulls out a 44 and shoots it into a tree. Just boom. Drunk dude gets scared, punches it, somehow leaves nothing more than a black rubber mark on the corner of my bumper that buffed right off, but tore the living crap out of the driver's side of his Jeep and the tree bark on the driver's side, and fishtailed through the parking lot and nailed like this big boulder that was in the parking lot, just like head on. I mean, instantaneous eruption of steam from the radiator that he just ruptured. And, and of course, party's over, and we were like, we need to get out of here. And my lead player at the time was like, he was mad. My dad steps out with a beer bottle and hurls it at the Jeep, doesn't even hit it. But he hurls it at this guy right as he was about to slam into a boulder. I mean, it was, and nobody got hurt. The truck was fine. I'm sure somebody, they called an arborist to come out and check on the tree. I don't know, but nobody got hurt. The guy ends up getting a ride with one of the bartenders to his house, and the manager was like, "Well, y'all want another beer?" I was like, "No, we better go before the cops show up." And we were probably there for like another almost 10 minutes after the gunshot, and still no sirens. We never heard sirens, but we decided to go ahead and get out there and hit the Whataburger on the way home.
Any night can end well if you end it with Whataburger.
Right. I mean, what? I got beat up, but I got a taquito, so it's okay.
Well, speaking of ending the night, I'm really appreciative you've come and done this podcast with me, and I'd love to hear the story behind Dirt Road Hooker before we play it.
Sure. So, do you know who is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I have known each other since I was a senior in high school, which would have been, I was a class of 96. So it would have been about 95, 96 time frame when I met him. And he was a DJ at a little local pop station in Stephenville. I used to go by the station all the time and hang out with him, but I couldn't speak on air. And if he would have been caught with me in there, the owners would have fired him. They had very strict rules. Well, fast forward, he always worked in radio, and he had his very own radio station in Stephenville. I get the band put together, and we're playing a show in Stephenville one night. So I hit him up, and I was like, "Hey, can we come by and do a radio interview prior to the show?" And he's like, "Sure, come on." So we go by, and we got to reconnect after about 15 years of not getting to talk to each other or see each other. At the time, he was married, and she was an on-air personality as well. And fast forward another year or so, and he kind of caught her barehanded, red-handed, whatever, doing some things with some other dudes that she shouldn't have been doing while she was married to another dude.
Yeah.
And that they parted. And fast forward another, about the same time, I was approached by a drunk chick who was a elementary school teacher. I think she was a college cheerleader at Texas Tech or something at one time. And she comes up to me after a show at the Greenwood Saloon, and she goes, "I've got an idea for a song." I was like, "Okay, you're a songwriter. How does that normally work out for you?"
Right.
Right. Normally drunk people think they have good song ideas. She happened to have a real good one. And I grew up in a small town, Hyco, Texas. And I'm like, yeah, I bet people can relate to knowing a dirt road hooker or two. So it took me like 3 years to write this goofy song because it kept becoming X-rated. Real easy to do on the subject with that subject matter and all that. So, but I finally get the song written, and I get to where I can play it without laughing, because every time somebody else would hear the song for the first time, they'd start laughing and I would start laughing. So I go over to Stephenville, and I'm on what's now his second radio station, and I'm on air with him. We're kind of just, shooting the bull, and we take a commercial break. We go outside. I've got a guitar, and I start playing that song. I said, "Hey, check this out. Tell me what you think." And then it dawned on me, he lives on a dirt road.
Oh, no.
And then I was like, you know what? His ex-wife's name would fit. So I just strummed the guitar, and I said, "Sarah was voted." And he's like, "Grab your guitar. Let's go back on the air. You're playing that right now." And I was like, "Dude, you haven't even heard the rest of the song." He goes, "I don't care. We're internet. We can do whatever we want to." So, and thus was our very first band merch shirts was, it was the band logo, and it said, "Everybody knows a girl like Sarah."
Oh.
And it's one of our biggest, aside from a punk rock song that we do. It's one of the biggest songs, best songs we do. Like, people are always like, play the Sarah song.
That's incredible. Well, The views and expressions and stories told on this podcast do not have anything to do with the host, so I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yes. And if your name is Sarah and you're listening, this isn't about you.
Right.
In the words of Dr. Phil, it's not about you.
Not about you. All right. Well, Jason, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to play that song to close us out. This is Dirt Road Hooker.
Sarah was voted most likely to become a porno star because she put so many miles on the backseat of her car, but she never moved away because she figured she could go all the way without ever having to go that far. Now everybody knows her as the dirt road hooker, 'cause on that dirt road, that's where she plies her trade. No, she never wore the love of one man. She'll take all of that she can, just as long as she gets paid. Now the faces and the names have escaped her mind, because the notches on her dashboard number north of 99. But there is no doubt, if you turn that old girl inside out, she looks just like some old porcupine. Now everybody